Lovely. I'm very pleased to welcome Jason and Olivia, who are going to be talking to us today about visualizing history through film and animation. So I'm sure they'll be able to tell us a lot more about that. So lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So it's fantastic to be here at the Museums Association. It's the first time that I've actually been here, and we've got a stand. So yeah, it's fantastic to be able to do a talk here as well. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about visualizing history. And I'm delighted to be joined by Olivia Pavone from National Army Museum. And we're going to talk through 3 case studies today that showcase different types of storytelling and different ways of telling stories, which hopefully might be useful. So to give you a little bit of a background as to Squeaky. So we are a film production company based in Crewe in Cheshire, and we work across the industry basically, from long form TV documentaries to short form social media content, 3D animation, hand-drawn animation, 3D reconstructions, oral history recordings, all sorts of different types of things. A lot of people have asked me where this name Squeaky Pedal came from, and myself and my colleague Pete, who set up the company, we used to play in bands, and I had a squeaky bass from pedal, and he was an audio engineer by trade, and he used to drive them up the wall, and so we settled on that name, and it's a slightly quirky, weird name that sort of seems to stick in people's brains, so which is quite useful. You can see on there some of the clients that we've worked with, so Channel 5's on there. So at the start of this year, we did a series of 8 episodes for Channel 5 and a documentary series called Sunken Warships, Secrets from the Deep, which was fantastic to do. Really, really exciting. And we've done a documentary for Sky History as well about lost liners. You can see there's a bit of a theme, nautical theme going on there. Heritage Open Days guys as well, who are here today, did a series of films for them showcasing their festival. So all different types of things that we do and different people that we work with. But one of our most prestigious clients is the National Army Museum. We started working with them back in 2020 for the anniversary of The Unknown Warrior. So we were producing and writing a podcast actually about the story of The Unknown Warrior. And we ended up chatting to the team, and we created a series of animated films telling the story of The Unknown Warrior. So you can see there's the bag of David Railton, the Reverend David Railton, who first conceived the idea of The Unknown Warrior. So we wrote a script of him talking about his flag that you can just see in the bag there that he took with him on the battlefields. And there was also another film there. You can see a lady with the wreath that was talking about remembrance and commemoration. We actually wrote a poem based upon a number of letters of different mothers who'd lost sons at the end of the war. And there's a Falklands documentary as well that we did, in which you can see animation and stood in front of an armoured car there. And so, yeah, I'd like to introduce Olivia from National Army Museum to chat a little bit more about what you do.
Thank you. So the National Army Museum is a leading authority on the British Army from the British Civil Wars to the modern day. My role at the museum involves developing and delivering educational programming and content for schools. The learning team actually works with 3 audiences, so schools, families and youth. But the projects that we're going to be discussing today were targeted at schools. So just to give you a little bit more information about our schools work. So first of all of our programming is free to access and curriculum linked, mainly history, but also STEM. And our core offer consists of taught workshops for primary and secondary schools, both on-site and online, or virtual as we refer to it. We also develop and deliver special programming. So that includes Key Stage 5 history study days and STEM activity days. In terms of galleries and exhibitions, we've got several themed gallery trails, and our galleries are filled with interactive exhibits. We've also produced a number of online resources for schools that are accessible on our website, and these include films, interactive timelines and source packs.
So the first case study that we're going to talk about is the Cold War Mission Reconnaissance, which was a fantastic project introducing young people to the murky nature of the Cold War and giving them an exciting activity to do.
So the Mission Reconnaissance Project, developed by my colleague Anita Alozia, included 2 films, an interview and an animation. And these feature within an on-site secondary workshop about bricksmiths, which was a British Army unit that undertook intelligence gathering missions in Cold War Germany. For the interview film, which features a bricksmith veteran, we wanted to provide not just a more engaging way to convey information about bricksmiths than through the workshop facilitator, but also a first-hand account of the experience and work of bricksmiths. So in this way, the film could also serve as a historical source. We wanted the animation film, on the other hand, to set up an activity within the workshop. It would feature a fictional army commander issuing instructions to his agents, the students. And the choice to use animation was really in order to introduce an element of playfulness and inspire creativity through immersion into the world of bricksmiths.
So utilizing animation is one of my favorite things to do, because I think there's so much you can do with animation. You can convey emotion through animation, you can enthuse, you can create scenes that you've got in your mind that you might not have archived to recreate. It's a really fantastic tool. So for this output, we decided to immerse ourselves in the 1950s and 60s in that Cold War time period. And looking through, there was lots of different comic books of spies and sort of almost Dan Dare style with jets and that kind of thing from the 50s. And we wanted to utilize that style of comic book animation for this project, because I think it's really immersive and it's really sort of sets that period up really, really well. So the National Army Museum provided us with a really clear brief, which is always really, really helpful. So we're able to plan out all of the scenes. And one of the images there is Mission House that we recreated. And you can see below that the floor plan of Mission House was really important in terms of the students understanding what was going on at the event. And there was a lot of archive that they wanted to bring in, a lot of archive images. And that helped us not only in obviously recreating some of those scenes in animation, Mission House there, as you can see, but also bringing them in so that it feels seamless and again, immersive. It doesn't feel like it's just chucked in as an archive image. And obviously that helps showcase the collections from the museum. We recorded an actor speaking the words of the Colonel, so we were able to direct him. And again, that was just fantastic. That was matching the animation to his words and the rise and fall. And it really helps with that immersion. And we also do a lot of work with oral history recordings of all different veterans from a number of different conflicts. And I always think it's a privilege to hear them speak. And interviewing filming the interview with the veteran was fantastic, just because I didn't really know that much about bricksmiths before, and hearing his stories of climbing on tanks that were on the back of trains that was moving through East Germany was pretty special to hear. And I think, like Olivia said, as an asset as well that can be used. Obviously, the film was quite long, so of the interview, so there's lots that can be taken out that in future. You know, from our point of view, the project could have just been a handout that could have just been handed to people, but I think the style and the use of film is just so much more immersive and so much more exciting and engaging for young people. And the whole purpose of the film is just to enthuse, to excite, to engage. And hopefully, I think we've managed to do that.
Yeah, so our Mission Reconnaissance Workshop is really popular with secondary schools that are looking to build and consolidate their knowledge of the Cold War. And with the Cold War usually first studied at GCSE, so often sort of associated with exams, what we hope is that this workshop, the lighter tone of this workshop, can boost engagement with the topic. And in fact, one teacher told us that she specifically booked it for something both educational and fun.
Well done for completing the first challenge. The rebel group has been located, and during a raid, worrying new evidence was uncovered. It seems they have been receiving inside knowledge from a source very close to us. Apparently, their plan is to hand over a vital piece of information during the dinner party at Mission House on Saturday. These are the blueprints for Mission House. and the layout for Saturday's dinner party. There will be a range of activities happening on site. Dinner will be served in the dining room. Throughout the night, there will be a live band in the reception, the option for drinks, canapes in the breakfast room, and games in the library.
Okay, so the second project that we're going to be talking about then, the Indian Mutiny. The Indian Mutiny is a secondary school workshop which explores the causes, events, and outcomes of the uprising in British India between 1857 and 1859 through the lens of historical interpretation. So during the pandemic, we developed a program of virtual workshops. They were adapted from our on-site offer, and schools can attend them from the classroom. And while these are delivered live online by a museum facilitator, they do include pre-filmed content. And through these films, what we really wanted to do was facilitate digital access to our really rich handling object collection, which has always been a really significant draw for our on-site school visitors. We wanted the Indian Mutiny handling object film to therefore showcase key artifacts that were central to the story of the events that unfolded. And in this way, the virtual workshops could replicate, as best as possible, the experience of attending a workshop on site.
Brilliant. And that was our goal really when we came to film, was that obviously Olivia and the team are well versed in presenting these workshops in person. So it was about getting that workshop down into a film and having Olivia and the team as comfortable as possible, just doing it to a camera rather than an actual group of young people. And so we worked alongside Olivia with a script and identifying images that we could use and then showcasing the handling collections. And key within that was just that, filming the objects being handled. And a key part of that story was related to cartridges and powder that was used. That was quite key in terms of actually one of the causes of the rebellion. So what was great that we were able to get Olivia to handle the musket and to clearly show what the cartridge was, what the musket ball was, how the musket was loaded. And we're able to do that with objects from the time, which is always fantastic. So it makes everything as clear as possible in what we're talking about. And for me, it's about obviously showcasing the objects in the collection. Obviously, the handling collection is used to being utilised for young people, but most museums have got huge collections, but obviously you can only show so much of that at one time. Whereas showcasing it within a film, it doesn't always have to be on permanent display, but it's still out there being seen by a wider audience. And obviously, the goal of this, really, from our point of view, was that in terms of who could come to the actual sessions, it might be that was only more towards local, but obviously with this film, you can send that across the country and everyone's able to participate. And it's about increasing exposure to the museum and increasing young people's knowledge of the museum, so that they might never have heard of National Army Museum, but having done this, they can then, it hopefully fires their imaginations. And obviously, if they want to learn more, they know exactly where to go.
So our virtual workshops have continued to be popular with schools beyond the pandemic, and that's enabled us to extend our reach across the country and even abroad as well, and offer a flexible alternative to visiting the museum in person. For secondary schools where there can be more constraints on going out on trips, our virtual workshops can make engaging with our stories and collections much more accessible. But as one teacher put it, a virtual workshop allows us to visit a museum's collection in a really straightforward way without taking a whole day of curriculum.
Cartridges for most muzzle-loading firearms of the period took the form of a paper tube containing a ball and powder. The standard method of loading was to bite the top of the cartridge and then pour the powder down the barrel. The rest of the cartridge, including the ball, was then forced down with a ramrod. Unlike existing percussion muskets, the Enfield's grooved bore required the cartridge to be greased to allow loading.
Okay, so the final project that we're going to be discussing is the liberation of Bergen-Belsen. The Liberation of Bergen-Belsen is an online film resource for secondary schools which explores the British Army's liberation of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany in April 1945 and the subsequent relief effort. The film sits within our collection of learning resources on our website, which can be used in the classroom or for home learning, as well as the museum's YouTube channel. This was a story that we thought important to contribute, and we knew it could reach a wide audience as the Holocaust is taught in all secondary schools. So we knew it could support learning across a wide audience. With this film, we wanted to use photographs to piece together a narrative, as well as shine a light on some of the really extraordinary documents that we have in our archives that are usually kind of stored away out of sight. And we were also really conscious of striking the right tone with such sensitive subject matter. So it was important to us that the source material, so the artifacts, the photographs, and the testimonies, that they be the focus of the film.
I think that's absolutely right. From our perspective as well, it was exactly about getting that tone right. Obviously, it's an incredibly powerful and immensely moving subject matter. So obviously, we worked alongside Olivia to work on the script and to decide on the visuals that we were going to use for the film. One of the first things that came to light was there was a clear timeline that was being discussed within the film and within the script. And sometimes in films where there's lots of dates and things moving along, you can very easily get lost and sort of misplace where things are going on. So what we decided to do was use motion graphics. So we created a graphical timeline, utilizing dates and showing them, and then moving the film along with the images. So it feels like as you watch it, you're moving along in time with the images, and that helps contextualize the images as well, so trying to match them with the actual dates that they were. But obviously everything's always visual, it's always clear to the viewer all of the time what's going on. And some of the written descriptions from the soldiers that were first into the concentration camp at Bergen-Belsen were incredibly powerful, and we wanted to include those. But so we decided to revoice them using an actor, and again, you know, directing that is tricky to get the right tone again. But its inclusion was incredibly powerful. And visually, how do you showcase that? So what we decided to do was the words that the actors speak in from the oral histories appear on the screen. And what we do is just hang on certain words and phrases. And the rest of the screen is black because we don't want to detract or take away from the impact of what is being talked about. And then this was the perfect opportunity to showcase the remarkable objects within the collection. So we filmed, as you can see there, a medical kit that was with one of the medics who was the first into the concentration camp. And I think visually, again, that's such a powerful object. Obviously, it was there, but it shows you clearly the limited nature of the help that was able to be provided initially when the army discovered the camp. And I think it's really quite striking. And the final thing was music. I think that music in a lot of films is often overlooked. I think people just tend to bang a stock track that they find on the internet that kind of works. But the problem with that is that, especially with visuals, such as in this film, it can jar and it doesn't work. And we're fortunate, being musicians, that we could actually write and perform a soundtrack for the film. And again, a lot of time was spent over how we were going to do that, what instruments to use. And what we decided to do was keep it really low key, a bit more of just a bed, but that was able to rise and fall with the images and with the words that were being said. So again, we're not trying to detract, we're only trying to enhance and contextualize what's going on. So I think it was all about sort of creating something that adds emphasis, like I say, rather than detracting from what's being said.
Yeah, and the film has been very successful in terms of viewership. It's become one of the most popular videos on our YouTube channel, with the current number of views standing at 170,000. By uploading some of our learning videos onto YouTube as well, we found that we've been able to reach a wider audience beyond schools. And in turn, that has driven more digital visitors to our YouTube channel and also to our website as well.
In the spring of 1945, Allied armies began their final advance into Germany. As they progressed across Europe from the east and west, they came across the horrific Nazi camps, rife with death, disease, and starvation. The first major camp to be liberated was Majdanek in Poland by the Soviets in July 1944. The Nazis sought to cover up their crimes, attempting to destroy evidence of the camp and dismantling others. Faced with the advancing Soviet army, they began to evacuate prisoners, mostly on foot, to camps in Germany. These death marches, as they came to be known, resulted in tens of thousands of additional deaths. In the early months of 1945, the Allies uncovered many more camps. This included the Soviet liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau in Poland in January, and the US liberation of Buchenwald in Germany in April.
So you can see the 3 case studies there. There's lots of different elements, like I say, of different types of ways of telling those stories within all 3 of those films. And we wanted to provide a bit of a bullet pointed of what we believe is the importance of digital learning and what we showcase through the films.
Yeah, so the projects that we've discussed today highlight why we have curated and maintained a digital learning presence at the National Army Museum. Our learning films have provided a really great opportunity to showcase collections which in many instances would otherwise remain unknown to visitors. And in doing so, have helped increase awareness of what the museum has to offer. These resources have facilitated new, engaging and enduring ways to access and engage with our stories and collections. And in some cases, such as recorded oral histories, even created new historical sources. Digital learning has also allowed us to extend our reach, both in terms of geographical location and diversity of school groups. And our presence on YouTube has connected us with a much wider audience than schools, furthering visitor engagement with the museum as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that's key. It's trying to help create content and stories that stand out and showcase them. And hopefully you can see different styles there that you can do that. Obviously, big fan of animation. We've done a lot with many other clients with utilizing oral history and animation, and that works really well. And it's about creating content that fires animation and has a bit of lasting impact. Obviously, with Mission Reconnaissance, you can see there that it is really about immersing the young people in that time period and getting them excited for the activity. And with the Berger-Belsen film as well, it is about contextualizing that and trying to tell and explore sensitive stories in a way that really provides context, but also, again, is engaging and moving as well. And that's the goal, basically, of the films that we've produced here. And we wanted to give you a little bit of insight into what we think works best as well in terms of a supplier-client relationship as well.
So in developing the projects that we've discussed today, we recognise, first of all, the importance of producing a comprehensive brief. And this really guided us in selecting a media production company during the tendering process. We were keen to work with a company with experience of and enthusiasm for producing historical content, which Squeaky Pedal were able to demonstrate. And after an initial meeting with Squeaky Pedal to discuss our first project, they produced a detailed tender document which confirmed that they had understood the scope and requirements of our brief. And we also valued Squeaky Pedal's creative input as well. So while we did have clear ideas about what we wanted to produce, we really appreciated the artistry that they employed in bringing our vision to life.
Yeah, from our point of view, having a good brief at the start of the project is key. I know sometimes it can be difficult in terms of coming up with ideas, but in terms of timeframes and in terms of us getting an understanding of what's required, clear briefs are incredibly helpful. And the National Art Museum will always be able to provide us with really, really good briefs. But they're always open to ideas, as Olivia said. Sometimes, you know, when we're in the process, we're always trying to think up new ways of presenting ideas, new ways of filming, and the museum are always really open to that, which is fantastic. We've got fantastic communication as well. Obviously, during edits, there's always changes that are required, little tweaks, little things that need to be done, and communication is always fantastic with the museum and with Olivia and the team. So that helps immediately, again, turn around, make changes, and get that output across in a timely fashion. Assets are provided in advance as well. So when we're trying to build the script and the film, having all of exactly what objects we're going to use, the images that we're going to use, it always helps us in terms of piecing together that story and knowing where best to put things as well. That's always key, and where they can appear. And it's been a fantastic relationship. We're incredibly privileged to work with the museum, and yeah, we're really proud of the content that we've produced, and it's fantastic to see it be utilised as well and enjoyed. So hopefully that's given you some insight into a number of different projects, and hopefully some takeaways there as well in terms of that client-supplier relationship. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Jason and Olivia. That was really interesting. Does anyone have any questions from the floor? If you just pop a hand up, we can get a microphone over to you. Yes, right at the front. I'll give you mine.
Hello, thank you. My name is Debbie. I'm a history teacher, and I work at the British Library in the learning team. So lots of ticks for me in terms of what we're doing. So thank you. It's really interesting work. I wondered, it's really great to see such a positive collaboration between the two of you. And I wondered whether you'd explored or done collaborations with teachers and kids along these lines. Because the transforming part, I'm curious as to how you get that without them being more interactively involved, and I just wondered what that looks like, or what that might look like going forward.
Yeah, so if, for example, if we look at the example of a virtual workshop, the pre-filmed content is a part of it. So it's very much an interactive experience. As I said, it's facilitated by a member of staff in the learning team. We are talking with the children. They're talking to us as well. So the video is something that we show, but then we've got kind of slides and context beforehand, questions and answers. And likewise afterwards as well, we'll refer to what has just been seen in the film. So it might be like a quick quiz or something like that, or it might be with the Indian Mutiny, obviously being a secondary workshop, often sort of sixth form groups. It might be kind of more in depth, picking out some of the artifacts that we looked at in the film, and then actually discussing them as a group in terms of how that source can be used in that wider question of historical interpretation. So as I said, it's very much a kind of an element of something much bigger. Yeah.
We've done a lot of project work making films with young people as well, helping them and showcasing the whole production side. So from us, that was a huge learning experience, and we've done quite a few of those projects now. And we're always trying to look at ways to, obviously, any output that we create, we want it to be engaging, and so we're always looking at it from that perspective, really, to make it as exciting and engaging as possible.
That's lovely. We might have time for one very quick question. No? Perfect. Well, thank you very much again for that lovely session.